presenters to know who they're connecting with. This will be recorded, so if you have a colleague that couldn't join us today, it will be available probably later this week, and it's through our YouTube channel, but I will be sending out an email for that. So as I said, today's presentation is Why Screenings Matter, and it's Ages and Stages Questionnaire and the new Sparkler app, which we're very excited to hear more about. I'm going to introduce the speakers to you, and then I'm going to turn it over to them because they are very anxious to get started. Jennifer McNeely is or McNelly. I always say McNeely and it's McNelly. McNelly is the Literacy Program Partnerships Coordinator for Starting Point, Childcare Resource and Referral. And Julie Babcock is the project coordinator for Bright Beginnings. So we are going to go ahead and start with Jennifer, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Lori. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's great to have you today. As Lori said, I'm Jen McNelly. I am happy to share information with you today, and I'm the Literacy Programs Manager for Starting Point. I've been in the early childhood field for about 25 years, and I've had many different roles. My passion is early literacy education, and I'm super excited to share some information with you today about developmental screenings. So we're going to jump right in. Please feel free to raise your hand if you have a question and you would like me to pause and answer that, but there will be an opportunity at the end of today's presentation for a question and answer should you have some then. Okay. All right, so we're going to get started right away with just a little question that I want you to think about. What words or phrases come to mind when you think about developmental screenings? You're here today, so obviously you have some interest in learning about developmental screenings, which is fantastic, and you're going to get an opportunity to learn more about ASQ3 and Sparkler. But what I'd like you to do first is reflect back on maybe some of your previous experiences. I want you to take a moment and think about the words or phrases that come to mind when you think about developmental screenings or the experiences that you've had with them. And this could be from the perspective of an early childhood educator or a parent's perspective, or some of you may be both of those roles. So think about that for just a moment. I'm not going to ask you to share. So just think in your mind, what comes to mind when you think about developmental screenings? Okay. Did phrases like this come to your mind? Developmental milestones, celebration of growth, skill performances, achievement, information or informative, goal setting, and family collaboration. Are those the kinds of phrases or words that popped into your mind? Or did phrases like this come to mind? Labeling, diagnosis, delayed, below the cutoff, not normal, maybe behind, or family resistance. Did either of those slides, if either of them represented your experience, it obviously tells two different tales of your experience with developmental screenings. You might be even somewhere in between both of those slides. My goal today is to provide you with some factual information about early childhood developmental screenings, provide you with some useful resources for yourself and some resources for you to share with the families of the children that you care for. And again, as I said, at the end of today's presentation, Julie and I will be available to answer any further questions that you may have. Okay. So what are early childhood developmental screenings? Pretty straightforward. Developmental screenings look at how a child is developing. The screens are made up of checklists, questionnaires, or even some simple activities for parents and caregivers to complete. They can include questions about a child's language, their movement, their thinking, their behavior, and even their emotions. Many of the questions are based on developmental milestones, and we're going to take a closer look at some developmental milestones in just a minute. So what are developmental screenings used for? They're used to see if a child is meeting their developmental milestones. And we know that every child is unique and will develop and grow on their own individual rate. However, there is a range of what is considered typical development. Looking at developmental milestones, parents and educators can identify areas of strength or an area of potential problem very early on. So let's talk about those developmental milestones. A developmental milestone is a specific physical or behavioral skill that most children can perform within a certain age range, and it marks a significant step in their development. Some examples could be rolling over, crawling, walking, and even talking. These skills are not uniform among all children, and although they're not uniformly happening among all children, they are sequential. And what that means is that certain skills must be developed before later skills can be performed. For example, a child has to know how to stand before they can learn to walk. Although developmental milestones are general guidelines, there are very age specific. They are age specific, and they show a range for typical development. And there are different categories like physical skills, cognitive abilities, language development, and social and emotional skills. Essentially, developmental milestones are key skills or ability that most children achieve around a particular age, allowing for monitoring of a child's overall development and progress. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or most of you know it as the CDC, they define developmental milestones as skills or abilities that 75% of children of a certain age can do. If you remember back to maybe your grade school math, that bell curve, that's what comes into play when we're talking about the typical development and the developmental milestones. Okay. Here's just a few examples of some infant and toddler developmental milestones. They can include smiling for the first time, making sounds like mama and dada, following simple directions, even eating with a spoon, using gestures like nodding yes. And we've all seen toddlers say no. And even kicking a ball can be an example of developmental milestone. A developmental screening allows parents and educators to compare their child's development to the development of thousands of other children of the same age. And that's something that they could never do on their own in their home or even at the child care center. So why do we need developmental screenings? The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends developmental and behavioral screenings for all children during regular well child checkups at the following ages: when the child is 9 months, 18 months, and 30 months. The American Academy of Pediatrics also recommends that all children should be screened for autism spectrum disorder during these regular checkups: 18 months and 24 months. The state of Ohio also requires that child care centers conduct developmental screenings for children who participate in certain programs. Step Up to Quality programs in Ohio require developmental screenings for all children. The screenings must be completed within 60 days of enrollment and annually after that. Many child care programs have parents complete the developmental screening upon enrollment, which makes it nice because they're completing a lot of the initial paperwork anyhow. Programs that also require developmental screenings in Ohio are the Ohio Home Visiting Program. This is comprised of trained home visitors that conduct developmental screenings for children participating in the Ohio Home Visiting Program. Early Intervention in Ohio, they provide developmental screenings as a part of their system. And Head Start programs. Children receive health and developmental screenings as part of a Head Start program. In addition to the programs that I've mentioned, additional screenings are sometimes recommended for children who are at high risk for developmental concerns. Starting Point, the resource and referral agency that I work for, has a lead safe program that I'm going to tell you a little bit about. Some of the time frames or some of the circumstances where an additional screening would be recommended for a child would be if they were a premature birth, they had a low birth weight, they were one of a multiple birth, if they had exposure to lead or other environmental risks, or if there was an infection that occurred during that child, during the pregnancy. So as I shared, Starting Point has, to address the issue of exposure to lead, Starting Point has a lead safe program. And it's an our program emphasizes the dangers because lead is an environmental toxin that affects the brain, heart, bones, kidneys, and nervous system of children. Lead possesses prenatal risks as well, such as miscarriages, malformations, reduced fetal growth, and premature birth, which we've also listed as a reason for getting additional screenings. Some of the other dangers of lead exposure could be stillbirth and also low birth weight. Even low levels of lead exposure can cause neurological damage and impact the academic performance due to impaired memory and executive function. There's depression, anxiety, and hyperactivity also associated with lead exposure. In Cleveland, children under the age of 6 have elevated blood levels that are 4 times the national average. Because of the effects of lead poisoning, because those effects are irreversible, it is crucial to prevent childhood lead exposure before harm occurs by removing those lead hazards. Lead-based paint and lead-contaminated dust in older buildings are by far the most common form of lead exposure for children in Cleveland. If the building that houses your child care center or your family child care home was built prior to 1978, the children that you serve may be at risk for lead exposure. Another important reason to conduct regular developmental screenings to catch any delays as a result of this possible exposure. Starting Point has partnered with Lead Safe Cleveland, the Lead Safe Cleveland Coalition, to provide safety information and possible remediation. I'd like to share a link with you that is on our website if you are interested in learning more about our Lead Safe program. So let me see if I can pop this one into chat. It's moved over here. Second. Oh, not letting me pop this in. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just having a little challenge with popping my links in. I will repair that when Julie is sharing her portion of the presentation, but I will make note to you at the end. These are the links that I discussed, so please stay on so that I can share all of those links with you. The first one that I said, as I shared, is going to be a link to Starting Point's website that will take you directly to our Lead Safe program. So you might be wondering, what are some of the most common developmental screenings? Well, luckily, you're going to learn a lot more about one of the most common used developmental screenings, which is the Ages and Stages Questionnaire. This one is designed for children between the ages of 1 month to 5.5 years. It contains a series of questions with answer choices of yes, sometimes, and not yet. It is the most widely used developmental screener with a free online screening tool to help parents understand their child's development and identify developmental delays. As I said, in a few moments, you're going to be learning all about some of the latest innovative features of ASQ3 and Sparkler. Another common developmental screening is the parent's evaluation of developmental status. This one is designed for children from birth to age 8. A positive feature of this screening is that it can be completed in about 5 minutes. The Child Developmental Inventories is another. This screening tool contains 3 different inventories geared toward age groups from infancy to preschool. And each of those inventories contains 60 yes or no questions. Some additional common screenings are the modified checklist for autism in toddlers. This developmental screening is designed for toddlers between the ages of 16 to 30 months. If you notice or recall, that coincides with one of those early screenings recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics. This screener also includes a series of 23 yes or no questions, and as I mentioned, it is a screening for autism. The Survey of Well-Being of Young Children. This is a comprehensive screening instrument for children under the 5 years of age. And the Devereaux Early Childhood Assessment, often called the DECA. This is designed for infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. The screener is screening for protective factors and social and emotional development. So what do the results of a developmental screening mean? Should the results of any of the developmental screeners that I just mentioned indicate that a child is not developing at the same rate as other children of the same age, it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a problem. Remember, developmental screenings never diagnose, identify a disability, or label a child in any way. What they can do is help you as an early childhood educator or a parent move forward and give the child the support that is needed. So I want to ask you this. Let's say you're cruising down the road and you hear a ping on your car's dashboard. How do you react when you look down and see the check engine light? You know that you have choices in that situation. You can ignore it and hope that it goes away, or you could talk to a professional and see what adjustments need to be made to keep your car functioning optimally. The same can be said for a developmental screener that indicates that a child might not be meeting developmental milestones. Ignoring the problem will not make it better. In fact, early detection is the best way to address developmental delays. They don't just get better on their own. In fact, it is just the opposite. The gap in skills of a child with a delay tends to widen over time if it is not addressed. The earlier the child can receive support and services for the developmental areas of need, the better chance that that child has for reaching important developmental milestones and functioning optimally, like I used in my car analogy, okay? If the screening shows a problem with a child's development, the child provider may make a referral to a specialist for further testing or treatment. They might also recommend at-home developmental monitoring, classroom supports, or activities to just strengthen those areas of development. When deciding on the next steps, a provider might consider the results of a screening in combination with the child's health and their family history. So having a strong communication between care provider and parents is a necessity. So where do you turn for support and resources? I'm going to share with you some national links, some national resources, and then some local resources as well. Okay. Nationally, the Centers for Disease Control offers a tremendous amount of free. Your taxes paid for this. So you might as well take advantage of these wonderful developmental resources. They've got educational articles. They have a developmental milestone tracker app that parents can upload onto their phone or download onto their phone and follow their child's monthly development. They have parent support tips, tons of great videos. They have developmental checklists, and that can help with autism detection or just to make sure your child's developing um, um, for their age group. And then they have activities that you can conduct with a child and their family. The Ages and Stages Questionnaire Screening Resource Toolkit is another fantastic resource that I'm going to share with you at the end of today's presentation. You're going to learn a lot more about the Ages and Stages Questionnaire or ASQ, but this toolkit contains additional child development information, parent support tips, developmental activities for families, and some frequently asked questions. This link I'll share with you gives you tons of great information about the Ages and Stages Questionnaire, all free as well. Another free national resource that I'd like to share with you comes from the National Association for the Education of Young Children. This is the acronym for NACE is the acronym that you may have heard of in the past. It's a large nonprofit organization representing early childhood education, teachers, paraprofessionals, directors, families of young children, even policymakers and advocates utilize NACE. NACE's focused is on improving the well-being of young children, with particular emphasis on the quality of education and developmental services for children birth to 8. On the NACE website, you will find a wide range of free resources, resource articles, book recommendations, and they have ready-made resources for educators of young children and their families. One of my favorites is the Message in the Backpack series. If you've never heard of it, they are one sheet pages that you can download, share as an early childhood educator with your families. You can even place your name and your center's logo on the form so it's customized to you. The one that I'm going to share at the end of the presentation is a one sheet all about what you need to know about developmental screenings. So this might be real useful if you're sharing developmental screenings for the first time with some families, or just a refresher for families if they're about to complete a developmental screening. In Ohio, some of our local resources are the newly created Department of Children and Youth, often referred to as DCY. And I, again, will give you direct links to that organization, Help Me Grow in Ohio, Ohio Early Intervention, and Head Start, all which I will give you their direct links, okay? Additional local resources are us, Starting Point. At Starting Point, we not only provide training and technical assistance to support child care providers with the administration and interpretation of developmental screenings, like the ASQ3 and the DECA, but we partner with many referral agencies should a child show signs of a developmental delay. We serve 4 counties: Cuyahoga, Lake, Geauga, and Ashtabula. Our services include access and coordination between child care centers and referral agencies. We assist with kindergarten transition. We help with professional development for our providers, and we also have a preschool expulsion and prevention program. Starting Point has a program entitled Prevention and Inclusion. As I said, we partner with many agencies, schools, school districts, colleges, universities, behavioral health professionals, and communities to make sure that young children and their families have the tools and the support that they need. Here's a couple of the agencies that we are currently partnering with: the Ohio Department of Health, Achievement Centers for Children, Positive Education Centers, Applewood Centers, Ohio Guidestone, Beechbrook, Hannah Perkins Center for Child Development, and Murtis Taylor Human Services System, all of which you will find on the direct link that I will place in the chat at the end of today's session. I'm also going to share with you a one-page overview of all of the services that Starting Point provides that you could feel free to download and copy, share it with families that are in that you care for their children. And they will be also be able to reach out to us directly should they need to. Uh, any questions now before we move on to Julie's portion of the presentation? Right. If not, if they come up in your mind at the end, I'm happy to answer this question. And as I said, I will be sharing those links at the end of today's presentation. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Sure.
Happy to follow up after you. That was a great presentation full of some valuable resources. So as Jennifer shared why developmental screenings are important, I'm going to share a little bit about one of those particular developmental screenings that she mentioned called the Ages and Stages Questionnaire, or most commonly referred to as the ASQ. So again, thank you for joining us this morning on this cold morning. We hope that you're bundled up and warm and have a nice drink with you. My name is Julie Babcock, and I'm the project coordinator at Bright Beginnings. Bright Beginnings is the statewide central intake and referral agency for Help Me Grow. So Jennifer mentioned Help Me Grow is one of the resources. Feel free to reach out to me about any of our services. And my colleague, Rachel Napolitano, is also on the call. She can also help you with early intervention. Hi, Rachel. Home visiting, or any of the Help Me Grow systems of support. Prior to joining Bright Beginnings, I was a classroom teacher for 17 years. I taught everything from third grade all the way down to pre-kindergarten. And then I was also a director of a multi-site early childhood program in Cleveland. I dabbled a little bit and was a resident educator mentor and a resident educator program coordinator, assisting new Ohio educators receive their professional license. So again, really excited that you're joining us to learn a little bit more about ASQ and specifically the Sparkler platform. As Jennifer mentioned, if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to pop them into the chat and we will answer them as best we can. Today, you will learn a little bit more about Ohio's ASQ online service and its recent expansion, the Sparkler Family app and the Sparkler Provider Dashboard, how to sign up and access the Sparkler dashboard and supports for early care and education programs, and others like yourself that are working in the field with young children and their families. So Ohio uses the Ages and Stages Questionnaire as their free developmental screening tool. So as Jennifer mentioned, there's tons of different tools out there, but the Ages and Stages is the most popular and widely used throughout the United States. The ASQ is a formal research-based instrument that asks questions about a child's development, including language, motor, cognitive, social, and emotional development. The questionnaires can be used with children as young as 1 month and all the way up until age 6, or through preschool, right before kindergarten enrollment. These tools, as Jennifer mentioned, help us identify children who are at risk for a developmental or social emotional delay, and they'll help further identify whether a more intensive evaluation is necessary. One thing I do want to point out is that the ASQ and other developmental screenings should not be used with children who are already receiving early intervention or preschool special education. These children have already been identified and would not benefit from developmental screenings. So as I mentioned, Ohio has recently expanded its ASQ online service. So the service originally started in Ohio in 2022, but last summer, beginning on July 1st, we increased the availability of this service. We increased the age availability. So it used to be only for birth through age 3, and now the screener is available for free for families and providers of children birth through age 5. We also added an ongoing monitoring of growth and developmental progress and helpful reminders that occur through push notifications on the Sparkler Family app. Parents will receive a reminder message when it's time to complete their child's next age interval screening. Providers can also view the screenings that are due directly from their dashboard. And this monitoring piece can really help improve child outcomes by tracking each child's developmental growth over time. And finally, we expanded the language availability of the ASQs. So both the ASQ3 and the ASQ SE2 are now available in a variety of languages, including English, Spanish, Chinese, French, and Arabic. So the Sparkler experience looks slightly different depending on the user type. So on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see what it would look like for families. Families download the Sparkler Play for Parenting app to access the Ages and Stages questionnaires and over 2,000 play-based activities. If you are a provider, your view will look like it does on the right-hand side of the screen. You will have dashboard access, which you gain through a desktop or a laptop computer. I'm going to play a short video for you that kind of gives a brief overview about the family experience of Sparkler. Give me a little wave if you can't hear it.
All parents want the best for their children. That's why we created Sparkler, an app to help parents and caregivers understand and support their children from birth through age 5. Answer simple questions right in the Sparkler app using the Ages and Stages Questionnaires to help you learn more about your child's development and ways you can help them learn and grow. Find ideas on how to spark their learning through off-screen play and activities to help build their heart, words, mind, and body. You can also get coaching and play ideas from Help Me Grow developmental screening specialists right on your phone or tablet. Complete a play activity and leave feedback to keep track of your child's learning and help your school or program get to know your child better. Sparkler is free for Ohio families with young children from birth through age 5 and available in English, Spanish, and Chinese. Arabic and French are coming soon. Learn more and download Sparkler today.
Okay, so as the video mentioned, Sparkler Play for Parenting is an app available in a variety of languages. On your screen right now, you're seeing what the app looks like for families on the home screen. And the box you want to pay specific attention to is the box in red here. That's where families would click right on that box to access the Ages and Stages questionnaire. So it always shows directly on their home screen, so it's super easy for them to navigate. All families when families download the app, they will enter in a special code. So if families are not connected with a provider in Ohio, they will enter the code OH, and that will give them free access to the app and the Ages and Stages questionnaire. And if the family is connected with a provider, either an early child care educator, a physician or pediatrician, a home visitor, those organizations will have their own unique code, which the family will enter, and that's how that organization will be able to see the child screening results. When families add specific codes, they are consenting to share all their information with myself and my colleagues at Bright Beginnings and with the Department of Children and Youth. I also want to point out that families can link with more than one organization or provider. So they could link both with their teacher and with their medical provider. This is really beneficial to families who might be asked by multiple providers to complete developmental screenings. In this instance, the family would only have to complete one screening and multiple providers can see those results. So it really saves time and effort on the family's part. These are some screenshots of what the screening looks like on the family's app. So you can see that each question of the ASQ, it has its own individual screen, and families can swipe through to answer questions as they go along. I do have a short video that I'm going to share about taking the screen.
In this video, I will take you through how families can complete the developmental screening in Sparkler's mobile app. Developmental screening is for everyone. Screening can help families celebrate a child's milestones and help families know what to expect next as their child continues to learn and grow. Screening can also help families and professionals identify any struggles and understand what they can do to help address concerns they have about children's development. Sparkler offers a mobile version of the Stages and Stages Questionnaires. Parents and professionals have trusted the ASQ for decades to screen young children, starting at 2 months old. How can you complete an ASQ on Sparkler? Sparkler will offer you screenings based on your child's age and their prematurity if they're under 2 years old. The ASQ3 helps to understand developmental progress, while the ASQ-SE helps to understand social and emotional development. You'll see the ASQ on your home screen or under the No. The ASQ3 includes a series of questions related to 5 domains of development: communication, gross, fine motor, problem solving, and personal social skills. ASQ-SE asks questions about your child's behavior and social skills. To help answer the questions, you can think about what your child says or can.
What's wrong?
Step different
Hi.
together.
Tell-
Click Get Started on the ASQ home screen. Observe your child and answer the questions according to what you see. When you're all done, confirm that you want to finish. Sparkler will send your ASQ score to Help Me Grow. A Help Me Grow developmental screening specialist will reach out to you to discuss the results, provide referrals, or connect your family with local resources if you need. To learn more about Ohio's ASQ program, visit Help Me Grow online at helpmegrow.org/ASQ. To learn more about Sparkler and developmental screening, visit us online at playsparkler.org. Welcome to Sparkler.
So what happens when a family takes an ASQ? Let's dig into the steps a little deeper. So once they answer all of the questions and press submit, the ASQ is automatically scored. As you saw on the video, a family-facing report is generated and the screening results are sent to the Sparkler dashboard that Bright Beginnings and any connected providers have access to. The parent will receive a coaching message through Sparkler that the results have been received and asking them to respond with a day or time that would be convenient for them to receive a phone call to discuss the results. Next, a Bright Beginnings developmental screening specialist will reach out to share the family-facing report, discuss results of the screening, and if necessary, they will help connect the family to additional supports, such as early intervention, home visiting, or preschool special education. We can also connect families to local resources through our community resource directory. So things like clothing assistance, food pantries, housing, mental health. We have direct connections for all of those needs that a family might have. During the call, a follow-up summary form is completed, and all providers are able to view this form and any notes within the form. Last but not least, the family then continues playing and learning within the app. And as I mentioned previously, they will receive tickler reminders when the next age interval ASQ is ready to be completed. Here are a few of our developmental screening specialists. It's always nice to put a face behind the voice that you hear on the phone. Now let's take a look at the dashboard, which is how providers access the Sparkler experience. Go back one, let's see, I'm gonna play my video, here we go.
Welcome to Sparkler Learning. Sparkler's dashboard helps educators, doctors, home visitors, and other providers connect with families and easily access data and reports. My name is Dana Stewart, and I am the Education Director for Sparkler Learning. This video will help you learn to navigate Sparkler's dashboard. You sign into the dashboard at app.playsparkler.com/dashboard/login with your email address and your password. If you ever forget your password, just click the Reset Password button. Once you sign in, you'll be on the main screen of the dashboard, where you'll see information about families in your program, including how many families are using Sparkler in your program, how much have they played, are they enjoying those activities, are they on the right level, how many screenings have families completed, how have they scored, and what services have the Help Me Grow developmental screening specialists recommended to families following screening. You can filter this page to find the information snapshot you need. For example, you might filter for the last month or the last quarter. You might narrow it down to just 3-year-olds or to only one classroom in your school. On the next tab, called Children, you can see a list of all the children in your program. You can also click on a name to access a child's profile. This is where you'll see that child's history of play, screenings, and engagement over time. If the parent shares photos of the child's accomplishments or information about a child's free play, the activities that they complete on their own, you'll see that here too. You can click over into Coaching to send this child's family a message. This is also where you will find messages sent between you and the family. Back on the main Children tab, you can use the blue Bulk Send button to send messages to groups of families. You can click Show Only Unread Messages and sort by Last Message from Family to see the messages that you need to respond to. All the chat icons will appear red. From here, you can also download spreadsheets. The first download gives you a spreadsheet of all the information that you see in this table. And the second download is about families' browsing behavior. What are families looking at when they're using the app? Are they looking at the messages that you send? Are they looking through activities but not completing them? On the next tab, Adults, you can see the parents or caregivers in your program. Click to see more details like their phone numbers and email addresses. On the ASQ dashboard, you can review a child's ASQ results by looking at the scores on the screen, or download the PDF by clicking here on the blue symbol. After a Help Me Grow developmental specialist discusses the results with the family and shares referrals and/or local resources, they will send a report to the family via a secure link. If you ever need to resend the report, you can do so by clicking on the child's results, then on the blue envelope and pressing send. From the ASQ dashboard, you can download different spreadsheets about the screening results. You can also complete a screening about a child on this page. This can be used to help a family through the ASQ, or it can be based on an educator's observations of a student. If you complete it, the screening will be scored and show up on the same ASQ report that are sent to families. From Sparkler's library, you can send some recommended activities or parent tips directly to families. For example, you can send a family an activity based on their child's age or a skill needing improvement. Last but not least, let's access settings. This is where you can update your password to something that you'll remember. If you ever have any questions, please contact Help Me Grow at helpmegrow.org.
Skip through a couple of these slides just because I'm looking at our time and we're getting close to the hour, and I want to make sure we provide some time for questions and answers. So some of these screens are just what it would look like from the provider's view that they kind of mentioned in the video. I do like to highlight this slide. This shows the family-facing report. So if you are familiar with the ASQ and you're used to the paper and pencil version, Sparkler provides a much more user-friendly version, colorful, and with some additional parenting tips that you see on that second page of the report. Some of the benefits, I know Jennifer mentioned benefits of developmental screening, but the benefits of specifically using Sparkler's platform for the ASQ is that it's free. It's free for all families in Ohio and any providers in Ohio. It meets the developmental screening requirement of Ohio's revised learning and developmental quality rating standard. So for our early care and education providers, that's referring to the Step Up to Quality tier. It increases communication with parents. So even if you decide not to use the Ages and Stages questionnaire, but another developmental screening tool, that really helps you work with families and have more robust conversations on how to really support young children. We see with the Sparkler platform improved child outcomes with the ongoing monitoring feature. And finally, it gives you as a provider immediate access to screening results and customizable reports that can, again, increase that partnership with parents or caregivers. I'm going to skip some of these. I think, Wendy, you were asking in the chat if providers should enter information for families or if families do that themselves. And families do that themselves. It really takes the burden off of the providers to find all those phone numbers and email addresses. But another question kind of similar to that is, do parents complete the ASQ or do providers? And we know that the ASQ is really a parent driven tool, so it's best to have the parents complete the ASQ directly on their Sparkler app. But there is the availability of the provider, the teacher, the home visitor, the physician, to complete the ASQ on the dashboard. So both options are available depending on what works best for the family and the provider. Finally, I want to mention some supports we have for providers. So I put in the chat our web page. You can also access it through this QR code, but we have tons of resources and videos to help you and families get started. You are also able to schedule a one-on-one setup and implementation session with myself. So I put my Calendly link there. If you need more specific help, I'm happy to schedule a one-on-one with you. I also host open office hours statewide every Wednesday at 1:30. Feel free to jump on to ask questions, hear about success stories from others in the field. And then finally, feel free to email me questions at asq@helpmegrow.org anytime. Happy to answer questions via email. Last but not least, we have ASQ Online Expansion e-newsletter that we send out almost monthly with any additional information or updates that we provide to the service. You can request access to those emails, to the e-newsletter by scanning the QR code or going to our website. We'd be happy to add you to our email list. Again, I want to thank you so much for your time on this chilly morning. I hope that we provided you with some great information and some food for thought. And it looks like we have a couple more minutes. I know that we're happy to answer any questions that you might have about the ASQ and Sparkler or about developmental screening tools in general.
Thank you both. That was really great information. It looks like everyone had some good questions that you answered very promptly in inside the chat. But if anyone has any questions that they're thinking about right now and you didn't write them down, just raise your hand. And Joan, I see your hand is up. If you want to unmute and ask your question. Or maybe it's not up. I'm sorry. I had it over Joan's name and there was a hand there and I thought it was Joan. Anyone else have any questions? You can raise your hand or unmute.
I have a question. Sorry, I couldn't find my hand to raise. You answered a lot of the questions about if they put in the provider's code because they're using it through a provider, it goes to the provider and Help Me Grow at the same time. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Correct. So Help Me Grow will always do that initial call out with any developmental screenings that we get. So whether that child is meeting developmental milestones, is falling within that monitoring zone or within the refer zone, our developmental screening specialists always reach out to the family within 2 business days. And we will try to contact the family 3 times over the course of 14 days. So we do know families are busy and sometimes might miss our original phone call or conversation. But yes, we receive all of those and we call out for each and every screening.
How do you do with, like, if you're going to rescreen someone in 2 months, does it automatically send it out? You know, if they're falling in those non-typical areas?
Great question. So if families are downloading the Sparkler Play for Parenting app, they are going to have access to any age interval screening that is appropriate for their child. So at the infant level, that will be every 2 months. At the toddlers, it's about every 3 to 4 months, and our preschoolers, it's about every 6 months. So when there's a new screener available for a family, they will receive a push notification from the app letting them know that a new screener is available, and then it will always be on the home page of the app when the family logs in. We do have some families that decide to screen at every interval, which is definitely what we would recommend. And then we have some families that are just abiding by their early child care and education providers request that they complete them once a year. So really, we leave it up to the family to see what is best for them.
But what I was asking, and maybe I didn't clarify, or maybe I just didn't hear. Typically in our classrooms, if a child is falling in the non-typical areas, then we'll rescreen them within 2 months. Just after we've provided activities and services to see if they've come out of those. Is that what, will that automatically come through for 2 months for those children, or they wait till the next 2, 4, or 6?
Exactly, right.
Okay.
The Ages and Stages questionnaire does not recommend rescreening with the same screener. And I know some providers follow that method, but that is not recommended by Brooks Publishing, who are the creators of the Ages and Stages questionnaire. So the recommendation would be to wait for the next age interval screening to complete the next screener.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, we are right on time. So thank you again, Julie and Jennifer, for all of the great information that you provided. Thank you to everyone that attended this presentation today. We will be sending out a recording of this. So if you want to share with colleagues, look for that in your email soon. And it'll also be listed on the Literacy Cooperative's YouTube site. So with that, everyone stay warm and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.